Okay, so this is just an update to the Gardenline compost tumbler video that I did a while back. I've had it for, I don't know, seems like a year now, and we've been filling it up because we eat a lot of produce. One thing I learned is that this is just too small. It's too small for anyone who actually does any gardening, too small for anyone who actually eats a lot of produce and has a lot of produce waste, like the scraps, the skins, that sort of thing. So it's too small. I'm just gonna revert back to using a compost pile. So it's too small. It it did not last very long because this just became super loose and no longer stays in place anymore. Only one side continues to work. Like it's stiff enough where it will stay in place. Also, I realized, because I just emptied it out, I realized that it did not compost, probably because it got too hot in Texas and it just dried out really easily. And it's too small to keep itself warm when it's cold out, so it just doesn't have good temperature regulation. Also, when I was emptying it out, as you can see, we had a bunch of stuff in there. When I was emptying it out, noticed that it just didn't compost. It didn't compost, and it was extremely difficult to get stuff out because there's not really an easy mechanism to like take this out, or there's not a larger compartment to be able to dump it out. So after trying to hold it upside down, and again because this is loose, the leg kept swinging everywhere, and then finally I just ended up having to stick my hand in there and just dig it out with my hand. So ultimately, I mean, it's cheap, I guess, if you have a very small garden, like a very, very small garden, and you don't have a lot of things to compost. I've got a lot of plants here, so I was composting quite a bit. If you don't have a lot to compost at all, if you don't eat a lot of produce and produce a lot of compostable material from your eating, and if you live in a climate where it doesn't get really hot or really cold, then you still have to deal with how do you get it out of there. If you want to try to pick up a full heavy tumbler and just jiggle it upside down, but otherwise I just wouldn't recommend it at this point. I don't know, I just don't really see a good use case for it. I feel like it's simple but bad design. It's just kind of unrealistic, so would not recommend at this point. I would get a much larger tumbler, or I would just go back to using a compost pile, which is what I'm doing now that I have kind of sectioned off this part of the garden so that the chickens can't get to it. Supposedly they can now jump over that fence, so I need to make that fence bigger. I'm going to be doing a lot of improvements to the backyard homestead in 2023. So again, I would not recommend the Gardenline. It's too small, doesn't regulate temperature, it's really difficult to get stuff out of it, and it just didn't work. So that's my quick update. Thanks everybody.